I've been having these dreams of hell recently. I don't think it's because of any inner turmoil or something like that. I don't really feel scared to be there or like I'm being judged. I feel more like an explorer or a vacationer in the same way Dante was, observing and not suffering. I'm a witness to damnation, not a participant. I look over at the barren wastelands of brimstone. I contemplate the smoldering lava lakes, and I listen to the deafening harmonics of the tortured souls. But in the end, I feel like I can leave anytime I wish. Lars von Trier has never been a filmmaker concerned with making audiences comfortable. From Breaking the Waves to Antichrist to Melancholia, he's built a career on confronting viewers with humanity's darkest impulses. But in 2018's The House That Jack Built, Lars von Trier pushes further than ever before. This is a film that divided audiences at Cannes, with over 100 walkouts at the premiere. It's provocative and disturbing and deeply polarizing. But beneath that shocking and brutal surface is one of Lars von Trier's most complex meditations on art and the nature of evil itself. The House That Jack Built is framed as a conversation between our murderous protagonist Jack, played by Matt Dillon, and a mysterious voice named Verge, played by the late Bruno Ganz. Throughout the film, Verge always argues for art and love. He's the voice of humanity, and he always argues against Jack's pretensions and his nihilistic justifications. Von Trier originally conceived the film as a television series before adapting it into a feature, and that episodic DNA still remains. Jack recounts 5 incidents from his 12-year career as a serial murderer, each representing what he considers a pivotal moment in his artistic development. The episodic structure allows Von Trier to show Jack's evolution. Each incident grows progressively more disturbing, more calculated, and more grandiose. The first incident is almost accidental, clumsy even. But by the fifth, Jack has fully embraced his identity and taken it to its extreme. This structure also serves another purpose. It creates a rhythm of tension and release that keeps us engaged even as we're repulsed. After each horrific incident, we return to the philosophical dialogue between Jack and Verge, giving us just enough space to breathe before plunging back into Jack's brutality. Jack doesn't see himself as a mere killer. That's too animalistic. He prides himself on his sophistication, and he becomes enraged when that's challenged. He doesn't see his murders as brutality, but rather as works of art. Von Trier punctuates Jack's monologues with archival footage and clips of his own earlier films, featuring actors like Willem Dafoe and Kirsten Dunst. This self-referential touch underscores the film's meditation on his own career and the work that inspired him. The central conceit of the film, and the most controversial aspect, is the comparison between Jack's murders and artistic creation. Throughout the film, Jack pontificates about architecture, Glenn Gould, William Blake, and the nature of genius. He argues that great art requires pushing boundaries, that decay can be beautiful, and that suffering can be a form of raw material. His first victim, Uma Thurman's character, dies in what's essentially a crime of passion, an impulsive act of rage. His second kill is his first truly premeditated murder. It's messy and plagued by his OCD compulsions. He can't stop cleaning. He can't stop returning to fix mistakes. But something shifts after those first few kills. He starts getting better at it. He takes more risks. He becomes less obsessive about the minute details. This is when he begins his Mr. Sophistication game with the police. By the third incident, the scene with the mother and her two children, Jack has moved into deeply disturbing territory. He discusses hunting ethics with them, positioning himself as somehow above such barbarism, only to turn around and hunt them down using what he calls ethical hunting rules. By the fifth incident, he's crossed fully into what Dante would classify as fraud and treachery, using calculated intelligence and elaborate planning to destroy human life. He's descending through the circles even as he believes he's ascending towards artistic greatness. Von Trier isn't subtle about his intentions here. This is clearly a meditation on his own artistic process and the criticisms he's faced throughout his career. This was Von Trier's return to Cannes after being declared persona non grata in 2011 following an ill-conceived Nazi joke. Like Jack, Von Trier has been accused of misogyny, of nihilism, of inflicting suffering on his audiences and actresses. The film directly confronts these accusations. At one point, Jack literally references Hitler alongside images of architectural grandeur, considering his perceived notion that great suffering equates to great art. The film asks, where is the line between provocative art and mere cruelty? Von Trier isn't endorsing Jack's worldview. This film is wholly ironic and even funny at times. Jack's pretensions are constantly undercut by the reality of his actions. He talks about precision and perfection while botching crime scenes and making foolish mistakes. He discusses the sublime while we watch him commit acts of pure banality and evil. He wants to be Hannibal Lecter, the refined monster, but he's closer to the criminals in Fargo. Dangerous, yes, but also fundamentally ridiculous. Matt Dillon's performance is the key here. He doesn't play Jack as a suave murderer like Hannibal Lecter. No, he plays him as more irritating and pathetic. Jack constantly looks down on people he deems stupider than himself. It's a core part of his psychology. In the fourth incident with Riley Keough's character, whom he calls Romance, he continually refers to her as stupid. Verge actually calls him out on this, challenging his need to feel intellectually superior. His grand artistic visions are revealed to be the delusions of a deranged mind, desperately trying to give meaning to meaningless destruction. The gap between Jack's self-image and reality is the source of the film's dark humor. He thinks he's creating art, but we see him creating messes. He thinks he's a genius, but we see him as a monster playing dress up with concepts he doesn't understand. The film suggests that while artists and killers might both be obsessed with control and creation and legacy, conflating the two is a fundamental error. Art requires empathy and connection. What Jack creates is merely destruction dressed up in intellectual clothing. Now it's time to discuss the elephant in the room. This is a very controversial film, namely because it contains scenes of extreme violence against women, children, and animals. At Cannes, the scene depicting children being shot prompted dozens of immediate walkouts. By the end of the screening, the 2,400-seat Grand Theatre Lumiere was roughly half empty. Those who remained gave the film a 6-minute standing ovation. Critics were divided. The film would be called everything from the director's most unpleasant work to a necessary provocation. I'm not going to describe these scenes in detail, but I will say that they are genuinely disturbing. Von Trier doesn't flinch or cut away. He forces us to confront the reality of Jack's actions in deeply disturbing ways. Riley Keough's death scene in particular, the incident with Simple, as he called her, prompted significant walkouts at the premiere. And honestly, that part got to me the most. It wasn't the gore. The violence here is actually less graphic than some of the earlier incidents. What disturbed me was the psychological cruelty of it. Jack plays with her. He tells her exactly who he is, exactly what he's planning to do, and then he waits. He savors her fear. He's not just killing, he's seasoning his meal, drawing out every moment of her terror because that's where his real pleasure lies. I had to pause the film here, not because of what was on screen, but more because of what I was feeling. I realized that Von Trier had kept me in Jack's perspective for so long that I understood the satisfaction in the moment. I could follow his logic and that complicity, that realization that I had been riding along in the mind of a monster for over an hour. It made my skin crawl in the kind of way that violence never did, which brings us to the uncomfortable question we need to ask. Is this exploitation? Is Von Trier just inflicting cruelty on his audience for shock value? Or is there a purpose to making us feel this complicit, this dirty, this implicated in Jack's worldview? I would argue that it's the latter. Von Trier is deliberately making us complicit. By staying with Jack's perspective for so long, by allowing him to narrate and justify his actions, the film puts us in this uncomfortable position of identifying with a monster. And then, when we see the full horror of what he's done, the extent that he's gone to for his art, we're forced to reckon with that identification. This is especially true in the film's treatment of violence against women. Von Trier has been accused of misogyny throughout his career, including allegations from actress Bjork and his behavior during Dancer in the Dark. And this film confronts that accusation head on. Jack is explicitly misogynistic, and the film shows how his hatred of women is tied to his inability to connect, to create, to be truly human. Remember how both his first victim and romance are blonde. Jack has a type, and his violence follows a pattern. But there's something deeper here, something almost Freudian in how Jack relates to these two women. His first kill was clumsy, accidental, born from rage. It's primal and uncontrolled. But with romance, he's trying to recreate that initial experience with complete control. He even gives her a name that suggests intimacy and connection, the very thing he's incapable of. It's as if Jack is attempting to master his original trauma, to gain control over that first impulsive act by meticulously planning a similar murder. But instead of achieving mastery, he reveals his own psychological damage. He's trapped in a compulsion to repeat, trying and failing to recreate the purity of that first murder. The more controlled he tries to be, the more his pathology is exposed. When he calls romance stupid over and over, and Verge challenges him on it, we see Jack's need to feel intellectually superior laid bare. He doesn't just want to kill. He wants to dominate, to prove himself smarter, more sophisticated. The film doesn't celebrate this. It diagnoses it, it plays with it, and it ridicules Jack for his actions. The film's climax takes a surreal turn. After the fifth incident, Jack's conversation with Verge is revealed to be taking place as they literally descend into hell. Verge is revealed to be Virgil, the guide from Dante's Inferno, and the film becomes an explicit allegory. For those unfamiliar, Dante's Inferno describes hell as 9 concentric circles of torment descending into the earth, a funnel-shaped structure where sins are categorized and punished with increasing severity. The deeper you go, the worse the sin, the worse the punishment. And at the very bottom, frozen in ice, is Satan himself. The upper circles punish sins of incontinence, lust, gluttony, greed, while the lower circles are reserved for violence and fraud and treachery. The ninth and deepest circle is for traitors, those who betrayed trust, frozen in a lake of ice, the furthest point from God's warmth and light. Throughout the film, we've been watching Jack's crimes escalate in severity, mirroring the descending structure of Dante's hell. His first murder is almost accidental, a crime of passion, something that in Dante's cosmology might land you in one of the upper circles. But by the fifth incident, Jack has become calculating, systematic, and cruel. He's no longer acting on impulse. He's meticulously planning destruction. Von Trier is making the connection explicit. Jack hasn't just been committing murders. He's been descending through circles of moral degradation. Each incident represents a deeper fall into evil. But Jack thinks he's been ascending. He thinks he's been perfecting his craft and getting closer to artistic transcendence. But the film reveals he's been spiraling downward the entire time. The final sequence shows Jack and Virgil crossing the landscape of the Inferno. Von Trier is showing us that Jack's artistic journey was never about creation. It was always about damnation. In Dante's original text, Virgil can only guide Dante through hell and purgatory, but cannot enter paradise. He's a virtuous pagan who died before Christ. Here, Virgil serves as both Jack's companion and his judge, listening to Jack's justifications with increasing skepticism. It's as if Von Trier himself is the Virgil figure. He can create art about darkness. He can explore the psychology of evil, but he cannot sanctify it or redeem it. The film's climax shows Jack attempting to climb up to paradise across a broken bridge as the screams of the damned ring in his ears. It's a moment of visual poetry. Jack cannot bridge the gap between heaven and hell. His house, constructed from the victims' bodies, provides no foundation. He falls, plummeting into the abyss. Von Trier has cited Hitchcock as an inspiration for this ending, wanting to give the film a classical structure where the bad guy is actually punished. But it's more than just moral satisfaction. It's theological. In Dante's cosmology, fraud and treachery are deemed the worst sins because they pervert the intellect, the quality that makes us most like God. Jack's greatest sin isn't violence, it's intellectual dishonesty. He's been lying to himself about what he is, dressing up his murders as art and his cruelty as philosophy. This ending suggests that Von Trier is aware of his own limitations and his own proximity to his protagonist. He's asking whether art that causes pain, that revels in darkness, can ever truly be redemptive. And his answer, delivered through Dante's framework, seems to be not if it lacks empathy, not if it serves only the ego of its creator, and not if it betrays the fundamental purpose of art, which is to connect us to something beyond ourselves, not to feed our own narcissism. So, what are we to make of The House That Jack Built? This is a film that swings wildly between brilliant and insufferable, often within the same scene. Von Trier's intelligence and cinematic craft are undeniable. The film is beautifully shot, expertly paced, and filled with rich allusions and ideas. But it's also exhausting, sometimes didactic, and yes, even genuinely disturbing in ways that may cross the line for many viewers. I appreciate this film for its ambition and its honesty. Von Trier isn't making excuses for himself or his work. He's putting the criticisms directly into the mouth of his protagonist and then showing us why those criticisms might be valid. Matt Dillon deserves enormous credit for his performance as Jack. He goes from pathetic to terrifying in equal measure, never letting us romanticize him, even as the film spends so much time in his head. And technically, the film is outstanding. The cinematography by Manuel Alberto Claro is crisp and clinical. He can turn even the most beautiful of landscapes into places of dread. The editing creates a hypnotic rhythm, blending Jack's horrors with the innovations and conquests of man. Now, would I recommend this film? Yes, absolutely. I view this as a masterpiece of horror, but that comes with a caveat. This film is labeled as provocative because it is genuinely provocative. It's not entertainment in a conventional sense. Even the most hardened horror movie viewer can still be disturbed by it. If you decide to engage with it, be prepared for something that is genuinely difficult. If you're interested in a film that pushes boundaries, that wrestles with the big questions about art and morality, and you have the stomach for it, then The House That Jack Built is definitely worth your time. It's a Lars von Trier at his most uncompromising, whether that's for better or for worse. There's a lot more that I could say about this film, but maybe I'll leave that for another video. So, what did you think? Have you seen The House That Jack Built? What did you think of it? Let me know in the comments. Okay, guys, that's the end of the video. Remember to like and subscribe. You can do that if you like the video. If you didn't like it, I don't know, you can fuck off. Thanks for watching. Bye.